everyone! Welcome to my channel, Math with Mrs. O. I'm Ofelia Orate, a principal owner of a school, a math teacher, and an author of 21 books. Today's lesson is solving quadratic equations by completing the square. The completing the square can be used to solve for the solutions of quadratic equations, not only for those equations which are factorable, but also for equations which are not factorable. Let's take, for example, this one, the first example. In my previous video on solving quadratic equations by factoring, I solved this using factoring. If you recall, here the factors are x plus 7 times x minus 1. Let's check. X times x gives us x squared. This should be x squared. Then x times negative 1 is negative 1x. 7 times x is 7x. Add them, that is 6x, which is the middle term. 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. This is equal to 0, so we equate this to 0. Now, by the zero product theorem, we learned last time that x plus 7 here is equal to 0, or x minus 1 is equal to 0. So, transpose x is negative 7, or x is equal to 1. There. So now, let us use completing the square, and we will compare the answers with this using the factoring method. So in completing the square here is referring to perfect square trinomial. So the perfect square trinomial, or the PST, perfect square trinomial, states that when you are squaring a binomial x plus y, it is equal to the square of the first term plus twice the product of the first and the second term plus the square of the second term. There, that is the square that we're referring to here. We are completing the perfect square trinomial. So in this case, you have to isolate the constant on the other side there. So negative 7 has to be transferred to the other side. And then complete this as a square, or make this as a perfect square trinomial. So we know that this can be equal to x plus 6 divided by 2. 6 divided by 2, or 3, quantity square. Now, if you square an x plus 3, you square the first term, x squared, there. You multiply this to 3x times 2 is 6x. That's why a while ago, I divided 6 by 2 to get 3. You know, we're doing the reverse, because when we multiply 3 times x, we get 3x times 2, that is 6x. And then you square 3 is 9. Whatever you add to the left side, you also have to add to the right side. Why? By the addition property of equality. So this time now, add 9 plus 7, this gives you a 16. And then you square both sides of the equation, you will get x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus 4. But we are solving for x, so we have to transpose 3 to the other side. So this is now equal to, transpose it here, negative 3 plus or minus 4. But there are two values here. This will give you the first value to be negative 3 plus 4. And the other value is negative 3 minus 4. There, so negative 3 plus 4 is positive 1. So let's write here x equals 1. And negative 3 minus 4, which is equal to x, is negative 7. There. If you compare your answers using the completing the square with our answers when we use the factoring method, the answers are the same. Now, let me just go back to this complicated part. Why did I divide 6 by 2 and have a 3 here? Because remember, when you square a binomial, you are, at the middle term is the product of the first and the second term xy times 2. So that's 2xy. So if you would like to get the value of y here, you divide this by 2. So that when you divide this by 2, it will give you an xy, which is just the product here. So let's go back to this. Divide 6 by 2, that gives you a 3. Go back. 3 times x is 3x. 3x times 2 gives you a 6x. There. That's the reason why I divided 6 by 2. Now, let us have now another example of a quadratic equation where the coefficient of x squared is not 1. Remember, this is equal to 1x squared and 1x squared, but 2 or any other number like 3 or 4 or 5. Okay. How do you do this? You do the same thing. In this example, 12 was already on the right side, isolated on the right side. So, let me just put a space here and a space here, just to be clear. Just to remind us that we have to add a number to both sides of the equation. In this case, since the coefficient of x squared is 2, we divide everything by 2. And divide that by 2. So this will give us an x squared plus 5 halves x is equal to 12 divided by 2 is 6. This time we will complete the square by making this a perfect square trinomial, thus adding a number here and a number here. Whatever number you add to the left, you also add to the right. So x squared gives you an x here. Why? When you square x here, it will give you an x squared. If this is plus, this should be plus. Then, get this, 5 halves divided by 2, or it's the same as 5 halves times the reciprocal of 2, or 1/2. So we get 5 over 4. 2 is the reciprocal of 1/2, or 1/2 is the reciprocal of 2. When you're dividing fractions, you multiply the dividend by the reciprocal of the divisor. So we get here 5 over 4. Oh, and then, how do we get the third term here? The third term here, remember, is the square of the second term. So you square the second term here, which is 25 over 16. 5 square is 25. 4 square is 16. Whatever you add to the left, you also add to the right. by the addition property of equality. There. So now, let's check this. Square the first term x is x squared. Check. Multiply this 2. 5 over 4x times 2. Getting the middle term, you cancel this. That is 1, this is 2. So you end up with 5 halves x. Exactly, the middle term. Square the second term. 5 over 4 squared is 5 squared 25. 4 squared is 16. There. So, all the three terms are correct. Let me erase this so we have a cleaner space. So now we add this. So this is now, we get the LCD of 16. 16 divided by 1 is 16 times 6. 16 times 6, 36 carry 3, that is 96. So this is now 96 plus 25. 16 divided by 1 is 16, 16 times 6 is 96, plus, this is already 25 over 16, so you just have to copy 25. Now, simplify the right side, we have x plus 5 over 4, quantity squared equals, add this, 6 plus 5 is 11, carry 1, 9, 10, 11, 12. 121 over 16. Oh, this is now a square, so you have to take the square root of both sides. We get x plus 5 fourths is equal to plus or minus. Square root of 121 is 11, because 11 times 11 is 121. Square root of 16 is 4. Then, transpose this to the other side. You have here plus or minus 11 over 4 minus 5 fourths, which gives you now two values. Positive 11 over 4 minus positive 11 over 4 minus 5 over 4 gives us 11 minus 5 is 6 over 4. Can we simplify this? They're both divisible by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2, or 3 halves. We have a second value, negative 11 over 4. So negative 11 over 4 minus 5 over 4. This means plus negative 5 over 4. By definition of subtraction, when you have a minus 5 over 4 here, it means plus negative 5 over 4. So now we get here negative 11 plus negative 5 is negative 16 over 4. And this is negative 4. There. So therefore, if your teacher asks you to summarize your answer, you have your x is 3 halves and or negative 4. There. Now, let's have a third example. Third example, we have here 3x squared plus 2x minus 2 equals 0. This time, the coefficient of the quadratic term, or x squared, is 3. What do you do? Step 1. Let's do it step by step. Step 1. Transpose the constant to the other side. So you have here 3x squared plus 2x equals 2. Transpose 2 to the other side. And then, divide everything by the coefficient of the quadratic term, which is 3. If this is 2, divide this by 2. If this is 5, divide everything by 5. If this is 7, divide everything by 7. Simplify. So x squared plus 2 thirds x is equal to 2/3 plus blank plus blank. Why? Why did I write a blank there? Because we have to transform this as a perfect square trinomial. We said a while ago that the square of an x plus y, a perfect square trinomial, gives us the square of the first term plus or minus there, the product of this times 2 plus the square of the second term. The second term is always plus because if you square a negative, negative times negative is always positive. So therefore, going back, to get x times y here, you divide this, the second term, the middle term by 2 to get xy. So you have to divide this. So I write a note here, this divided by 2 is the same as 2/3 times the reciprocal of 2, which is 1/3. You copy 1/3 here. There, plus x. Go back, check. Square the first term, x squared. This is squaring the first term. Multiply the first and the second term is 1/3 x times 2. That will give you a 2/3 x. Is the middle term a 2/3 x? Yes. See? Multiply x and y is xy. Times 2, you get 2xy. And then you square the second term to get the third term here. Square 1/3. 1 times 1. 1. 3 times 3 is 9. Since you added 1 9 on the left side, you also have to add 1 9 on the right side to balance the equation or by addition property of equality. Now this time you have to add this. You cannot add the fractions if the denominators are not the same. So you make the denominators the same. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 times 2, that is 6. Plus 1. Repeat, 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. This is 1/9, so you just have to copy that. So this gives you now a 7/9. So x plus 1/3 quantity squared is 7/9. Now take the square root of both sides. So we have x plus 1/3 equals plus or minus square root of 7 over, what's the square root of 9? It's 3. Now you can now isolate x here by transposing this to the other side. So you have negative 1/3 plus or minus square root of 7 over 3. Which gives you two values there. Negative 1/3 plus or minus square root of 7 over 3. Or you can rewrite it as one term. So this is negative 1 plus, and then the minus will be here. There, just to let you see. There. Negative 1 plus the square root of 7 over 3, and this is negative 1 minus the square root of 7 over 3. This is your first value of x, and this is the second value of x. Okay, let me just summarize everything. Step 1, isolate the constant to the other side 2. Step 2, divide everything by 3. Step 3, simplify. So you cancel this becomes x squared plus 2/3 x plus blank equals 2/3 plus blank. Then, if you make this a square of a binomial, what do you square? So you get x squared, that will be x. And then this, from the PST rule, divide 2/3 by 2 is the same as multiplying 2/3 by the reciprocal of 2, which is 1/2. That's 1/3. Write it there. Square 1/3. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. Whatever you add to the left, you add to the right by APE. Simplify again. So 9 divided by 3 is 3 times 2 is 6. And you just copy this because anyway this is 1/9. That gives you 7/9. Then you take the square root of both sides. This is plus or minus square root of 7/3. Then you see here that when you transpose 1/3, there, step 5, when you transpose 1/3, it becomes negative 1/3. Here, will give you two values of x of 1 and x of 2, negative 1/3 plus square root of 7/3, or negative 1/3 minus square root of 7/3. So, your final answer will be negative 1 plus or minus. You can write them like that, meaning you already have two values, the plus square root of 7 and the minus square root of 7. This can now be your final answer. I hope I was of help, but remember before we end, add kindness, subtract judgment, multiply understanding equals Mrs. O's good life equation. Don't forget, press the subscribe button or the bell button. Thank you.